I want to preface this by saying everything is perspective. People seem to like the Elantra N or dislike the Elantra N based on the cars that they're used to driving, right? Everything is perspective. It's not exclusive to the Elantra N, obviously, but if you're coming from a BMW, if you're coming from an M5 and you grab the Elantra N and you're like, oh, it has a little cheap plastic in the interior, like, okay, it's cheaper than your car, literally. I think I definitely fit the demographic for this car, right? Because I had a 2013 Hyundai Elantra. This thing just outperforms it in every single way. If I got the inline, that would have outperformed my last car in every single way. And that's not even, you know, that powerful if we're comparing it to the N. So when I hear people say, oh, the piano black in the interior is a little cheap and they're using cheap plastics on it, or like maybe the bumper is a little cheap, they could have done better, it doesn't really apply to me. This isn't cheap to me. It's a car, you know? It's not luxury, but it doesn't feel cheap to me. And nowadays I see a lot of kids driving fast cars. I'm not sure if it's just the fact that social media exists and people are just taking more videos, but it seems like now there are a lot more young kids driving really fast cars. But I gotta be honest, even when I was in high school and college, kids had fast cars. It just depends on what city you're in, what type of environment, you know, the type of neighborhood that you're in. But I see a lot of 17, 18-year-olds, you know, driving a nicer car than some people will ever drive in their entire life, which is awesome. I love to see that. But if I'm being honest about the Elantra N, I don't think that I would have wanted this car as a first car. This would have been crazy powerful for a first car. I had what, 150 horsepower? Somebody tell me how much horsepower the Buick Century had, the 2003 Buick Century. That was my first car. And it was nice to start off with something that I could just, it had control. The turning radius was good. It was smooth. It had a great drive to it. And then my next car was that 2013 Hyundai Elantra. So I've only had 3 cars. This Elantra N is my 3rd car that I've ever had. And my previous 2 cars, the 2013 Elantra and the 2003 Buick Century, I had those for a long time each. So it was nice for me to get started on some regular cars with not too much power. I've mentioned before that I've driven a lot of Challengers. That's just one of my favorite cars. And when I rent a car, I usually go for the Challenger. But besides that, I haven't driven too many performance cars. So I'm very blessed and grateful that I'm able to upgrade my car to something like this. And when people call a car like this cheap, I'm looking at them crazy because I'm like, yo, this is twice as much as my 2013 Elantra. Like, what are you talking about? If you think that the Hyundai Elantra N is cheap, then I'm really curious to see what you think about a regular Elantra. So that's why I'm saying it's all perspective. You know, you're thinking about whatever car you had previously and you're comparing everything up to that one. Some people are just complaining about stuff just to talk, and other people are bringing up actually valid points. Like if they don't like, you know, the little bar right here, the oh crap handle, if they don't like that, you know, that makes sense. I've heard people complain about the seats not being that comfortable. To each their own. To me, these seats are just fine whether you're driving for 20 minutes or you're driving for 10 hours. Like, I love the seats. They just feel great. I don't need a luxury vehicle. Since I just brought up the Buick, the 03 Buick Century that I used to have, that was the most comfortable car that I will ever have. It felt like a perfectly broken in couch. But as far as these seats, these racing seats, I don't know why you would want a performance car and racing seats and you want it to somehow still feel like a luxury vehicle. Like, that doesn't really make sense to me. If you want luxury, you want something to feel good, go for that. If you want performance, go for that. It's just perspective. And another thing that I did want to mention is just brand biases. We've all got some sort of a bias, and some for good reasons and some not for good reasons. I compare it to video games. If you're that guy who's like, I only play PlayStation, I hate Xbox and PC, or you only play PC, you only play Xbox, you're just missing out on a ton of good games. They all have a controller. Whether you use the keyboard or actual controller, they might look a little different. Essentially, you're doing the same thing, and you're missing out on more great quality games just because you're like, oh, I don't like the console. To all my PC people out there, y'all probably got the most power, I can't lie. I got an Xbox Series X myself, so, you know, we like what we like. But not liking something just because it's a different brand is absolutely crazy. So when it comes to Hyundai, they've got their problems just like any other car company. And of course, I know that a lot of you can name like a top 5 or top 10 notoriously bad manufacturers, but I don't even want to get started. Car companies have had all sorts of things happen, from cars catching on fire and them not doing anything about it and recalling them too late, to cars just being not built well in the first place. That's an issue that a lot of manufacturers face. That's just how reality is. So to say that one brand is just garbage is just wild to me. There's some brands out there that I would not prefer, right? But I'm never gonna be fully serious and saying like, oh, all Fords suck. Like, I don't really like many Fords, but I'm not about to say that they all suck, man. You put me behind the wheel of a Shelby GT, I'm gonna be a happy dude. I love most cars. But yeah, everything is perspective, man. This is a huge upgrade for me. The brakes, the speed, acceleration, the handling, the limited slip differential, everything about this is a huge upgrade. So for people to say that this car is cheap is kind of crazy to me, because you have a lot of cheap cars to choose from that are under $20,000.